Hey folks, welcome back to Game Geeks. Today we are reviewing a product that's had a lot of different lives, and you'll see what I mean in just a second. This is the Kerberos Club. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. That's one of those words that I've always tripped over that I've never been exactly sure how to say. It's the Kerberos Club by Arc Dream Publishing. Now, the reason I say this has had a couple of different lives is this originally saw print as a supplement and a setting for the Wild Talents role-playing game, which is a Supers role-playing game, which really is where the one-roll engine started to really pick up steam. One roll was originally seen in Godlike, which was the very deadly World War II Supers game. Then was Wild Talents, and then there was a second edition of Wild Talents that cleaned it up bits here and there. But either way, then there's a couple other supplements, one roll engine being you roll a pool of 10-sided die, and then rather than looking for a specific target number for successes or adding them up, you look for matches. And the matches or your roll is defined by what they call height and width, like how many you had in that particular number, which is the width, and what the number was, which is the height. There's a lot more complexity that you can get into after that, but that's really kind of the core of it. But that has nothing to do with what we're talking about here. As I want to do, you all watch, you know I tend to ramble. This is the Fate edition of the Kerberos Club. So what this does is it takes the same setting, which we'll talk about momentarily, but now uses the Fate engine for its game mechanics. For those of you who've watched us for a while, you know that we're big fans of Fate. This goes back to, I think, the one and only guest host we've ever had, Isaias Acosta, back with Spirit of the Century and the Fate game in general. And then we've covered others up until now, Diaspora, Bulldogs, Dresden Files, etc. This is a rather unique take on Fate. In fact, this is called Strange Fate, because what it does is it disassembles most of the Fate game and allows you to sort of custom build almost anything you want using this particular engine. The setting is gold. I'll be very honest with you. One of the things that Arc Dream has really done a lot of lately, and they do it brilliantly, are these alternative history games. For example, I point you to Wild Talents, which is the Supers game of the one-roll engine. I point you to Godlike, which is its own unique take on history. I point you to Progenitor, which we reviewed at about the same time we did Wild Talents, which is this very intricately and deeply detailed alternate history of a Supers game. This in particular also brings in that alternate history route, which is what happened if Queen Victoria's England was stranger. That is, there were low-ish in superpowers. There was magic. There are fairy. There are all of these other things that are all adding up. And rather than just introduce one concept and then sort of just play around, well, most of history was pretty darn similar except for these couple things. What they do in all of those works I mentioned, and especially in here, is they really build up a theoretical history of what would have happened in those times. So in this, Queen Victoria has become almost divine in what she can do in terms of controlling people, she pretty much wages war against the realm of the fairy and wins. And then it's how your characters fit into this Victorian London writ large, but they're still very unusual characters. For example, some of the archetype characters they have in here, one of them is Dr. Archibald Monroe, who is a very well-educated and brilliant chimpanzee. Then you've also got a fairy-inspired character, a London boxer that's made of stone, and things along those lines. As I mentioned earlier, one of the real selling points for this game is the way that they can dissect the skills, trappings, and stunts, which are really one of the four pillars of the Fate game, the fourth being aspects, but break down those three principal areas and have you rebuild it according to your own design. So really, you could create any number of different magic systems, specialty skill powers, etc. And because I'm sort of notorious for never using a game for specifically what it was built for, I could very easily see ripping that particular piece of this engine out and running a Fate-powered Harry Potter game. Or Harry Dresden. Oh, wait, there was already one of those. Scratch that, just seeing if you were paying attention. So a Fate-powered Harry Potter game. Or almost any system or any setting, rather, where you could see some sort of alternate weirdness going on underlying the overall world. I'm becoming a bigger and bigger fan of Fate almost every day. There have been several iterations of it over the years. Saw first real mass-produced Light of Day and Spirit of the Century. Then you had Dresden Files, which sort of took some of their own spin on it. Diaspora, which is the hard science fiction. Bulldogs, which is more of a space opera, light sci-fi sort of arena. You have the STARBLAZER books, which include STARBLAZER Adventures, which is another science fiction game, and Legends of Anglaire, which is fantasy. And now you've got Strange Fate as it is presented in here, which is another way to take that basic engine and disassemble it and put it together doing almost anything you want. If you are looking for a different take on Fate that is almost more modular or toolkit-like in nature, if you like Victorian games, Victorian settings, etc., or if you're just looking for a different take on a low supers urban fantasy but with this smoky, sooty grime of Victorian London, you really cannot go wrong with the Fate version of the Kerberos Club. For Game Geeks, I'm Kurt Wiegel. Good day and good gaming.